special guest. In our year-long honor of women in sports, we have Bec Stephens, who's the current general manager of Southern Districts Spartans. Great playing career, great coaching career. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
And are we allowed to say the dark side?
Well, they go by the name The Dark Side.
Definitely are.
Okay, good.
All right, so we want to get stuck into this. We will interrupt to welcome our guest and thank welcome our sponsors and thank our sponsors. But let's get into the Rebecca Stephens story. Is it okay if I call you Bec?
Sure.
Okay, so did you start your junior playing career? Let's go playing, coaching, general managing. Cool?
Yep.
So because I know you were a player of some consequence. How many QBL championships did you win as a player?
10 state league championships, and in 99 we won the ABA national championship.
Holy dooly.
Impressive.
Absolutely. So, to win one of those is impressive. To win 10,
10.
It's like the conversation we had with Sandy Brondello the other week. And she goes, just off the cuff, I won 10 European championships in a row. And you went, what? And it takes a lot of effort, to maintain that many championships, So what clubs were they at?
All at Southern Districts. I left a few times and played for other clubs, but all of my championships were with Spartans.
Okay. And so you started there as a junior?
I did. Not a lot of people know this. I did play one season of under-12s with Caps.
Okay.
That was in the... I know.
Opposition.
But that was, to be fair, that was before Southern Districts. Southern Districts was just getting off the ground.
Yeah.
And then Alan Ladwick approached my father, who he knew. My dad was a coach, and so then we went across. So then from under-14s onwards, I was...
Tell us about your family, because I've actually not that you and I have ever met till today. I've heard of your family. They've got a good reputation at Southern District. So your dad was a coach?
Dad was a coach. So his mother, my grandmother, she was the president of Maine Basketball Club over at Auchenflower. So, basketball's in our blood. We've my dad's sisters played and Dad played, but he started coaching as a teenager. That was his passion. Yeah. So and then he took us all across the Southern Districts, and we were kind of one of those families that helped start it and stayed
in the canteen and raising money.
All those things, managing. Yeah.
Were you able to push Alan out of the canteen, or is that possible?
On a Friday afternoon when the pokies are on, he'd be out of there in a flash.
Who are some of the other star players that you shared those 10 championships with?
Probably the three people that taught me how to play the game properly were Val Wong, Trina Roberts, and Linda Smith. They're married now, but they were their maiden names.
I know those three ladies incredibly well, because they also... I'm a Bundy boy that played in Brisbane.
Yeah.
I didn't play any other club outside of the Caps. Well, they were the Brewers in those days. And those three ladies were Brisbane girls at times.
Yeah.
And could play.
Yeah. They definitely. And look, not only did they teach me how to, play basketball, I was 14 when I started playing seniors.
Yeah.
They taught me how to play basketball, but they taught me how to win and taught me what it was to be a team, Didn't matter what was happening off the court with us as individuals, or, he was sleeping with his boyfriend or whatever, when we got on the court, we had each other's back, and, we went to battle together, and they taught me that.
I think all three of those were Brisbane. What were the Lady Bullets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were they called the Lady Bullets?
Yeah.
What about
Trina
the Blaze?
No, they were called the Blaze, weren't they?
No, the Brisbane Blazers that ran out of Southern Districts. Remember, a couple of years later. I was a kid in that, and you were there for a bit, and then Lyndon Briefers took over.
Yeah,
but the Lady Bullets was the original prior to that out of Auchenflower.
And Rick was coaching them. Yeah, Rick had a fair bit of time with them. Trina's a teacher back in the States. She was like a premier import at the time, but just a top chick.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they also taught me how to drink, just quietly.
Yeah,
So-
that were the good old days of the bar was up the back steps of the orchid flower. Holy moly! I
That
just
wouldn't be dangerous today.
wow. I would fall down the stairs
The
coming back.
tumbling
I
dice.
would, they would have. I can't get up there anyway. So, but
Pivot.
keep going. Yeah.
Pivot. Now your coaching career. Yeah, I know that. But I know that you coached Queensland under 20s. How many times?
I did 5 years just as an assistant with the men's. I did 1 year with the women and then 4 years with the men.
You were when I did with PC with Peter Crawford and Marta Dydick. What year was that?
Oh, goodness.
That was on the North Coast of New South Wales.
2017 maybe, something like that.
Could be.
Back then, yeah.
And you were with Mark.
Yes,
Then
correct.
you
Yeah.
guys won it that year.
No.
Oh.
Who were you coaching with the men team?
No,
So Mark Roble I did the women with, and when Bruce had the men. So we beat Victoria in the rounds by 20 and then lost to them in the final. So we got the silver that year.
Yep.
But then the following year, I went over to the boys with Mick Downer was the head coach.
Right.
Okay.
Only year we didn't get a medal. Thank you very much, Mick.
Yeah.
And then I did 2 years with Peter Crawford, got a silver and a gold. And then I did another year with Joel Carlu and we got a gold as well.
Jeez, that's impressive.
Absolutely, and all those guys, incredibly impressive coaches as well. You know, Mick doing a great job overseas.
Japan.
Yeah,
He's killing it.
and you know,
Joel.
PC at back at Southern Districts, and that's what's his third year there now. Third.
Yeah, third year as the men's head coach. He's also the full-time coaching director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then
Joel Kalu's big
I don't know
time.
Joel that well, but his career is just thriving.
Well, we talked about the under 20s winning that championship. He was assistant coach with Tatum at Illawarra.
Yeah.
Wollongong. What do we call him? Illawarra.
Illawarra.
He's big time, mate.
Yeah.
His career's got to keep going. But let's pivot and get back to you, Bec. Did you ever aspire to coach WNBL?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. And from a female's point of view, me being a female, but also coaching females. So in 2016, Spartans were still playing in the Seabull. So they had a coach that they had asked to leave. I had just had a baby, so I'd had about a year away from basketball. So prior to that, I, coached a lot of juniors and assistant coached at the senior level. But, and then anyway, they rang up on a Thursday night at 9:00 and said, "Oh, we've just asked the coach to leave. Can you coach on Saturday in the Seabull game?" I was like, anyway, so
That's been tossed in the deep end.
yeah, exactly. And they said one game. It ended up being the next 5 years. But yeah, that was interesting. So that I went into that season, they were 0-5. There was only 7 players left because all the players had quit. I was also obviously had time away from basketball. So we took that season, we ended up making the semi-finals of Seabull. We just ran out of gas emotionally by the end. But, I was going through some stuff in my personal life at the time with the breakdown of my marriage and new baby. And I just loved it. It was, an outlet for me to coaching that season. So, then
certainly
kept
keeping
going.
yourself busy with that.
No, without dragging names in the dirt, who was that coach?
Donna Rinaldi.
Right.
So
She was a great player and achieved.
She was a great
achieved lot of-
coach, and unfortunately, she just had some issues in her personal life as well with addiction, and and it just sort of all came to a head at that time, and so
That's a sad story. Now, let's get into first and foremost. You guys are doing great jobs there. I know because I see it every Monday when I come in. The stadium looks spanking. It looks really nice. The court 2 will get there, right? We're going to fix that up soon.
Well, look, the amount of I tell you, if I didn't have this job, I'm getting a job in council or some sort like that. It's like pulling teeth trying to get through all the steps you need to get through. So Phil Binder, my operations manager, has done a really great job of getting us a lot of grants. So we've got a state government grant for about $370,000. We've also now got a federal government grant for about $950,000.
And that'll cover the GM salary.
So yeah, but it's getting all the paperwork signed off and all the things that you need to do, and building approvals and all that kind of thing. It's taken longer than I was hoping.
Is one of the court? I mean, I haven't been out for a while. Is one of the courts damaged or
no. So what we're going to do with so we're going to put in extra toilets and change rooms that are fully accessible. So right now we've only got one accessible toilet, which honestly a wheelchair doesn't fit through the door properly. So we're putting in fully accessible toilets and change rooms down the end of court too.
You get a massive applaud from me regarding that.
Well, that's not the best bit. With the federal government grant, we're actually going to put in a disability lift.
Wow.
So we're putting, so that because right now it's hard, you've
got to go through the swimming pool.
Correct. And then you've got to go out and around the road to come up. But yeah, we're going to put in boardrooms and coaches' rooms and
nice.
Yeah, we're obviously
More
renovating
courts,
the canteen.
any chance?
Well, that's nothing to do with these grants, but I have secured a site at Wakeley. So it's a council site at Wakeley. Right now it's 6 outdoor netball courts. So we're taking over the lease on that, hopefully in the next month or so. We're going to activate it as, an outdoor facility, but our plan is to build that into a six court indoor facility. I just need some government support.
I mean, the reality is we talk about this every week. There's just not enough facilities for basketball. I mean, to even hear Andrew Gaze come and talk about Melbourne not having facilities, and we know as Queenslanders that we've been jealous of how many facilities they have.
Yeah.
But it's just a sheer population thing. I mean, Melbourne continues to grow as a city as well.
Well, that's why you got to take your hat off to Lindsay Gaze.
He was ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time. His vision was, and it played out. If we had facilities, we'll have more players. But we don't want to be sharing these facilities with every other indoor sport. It was basketball first. Basketball had the management. But he did a lot of work with Beep getting the deals for, hey, we build this thing, we'll give you guys a deal on the steel.
Right.
And he was the general manager of the peak body of Victorian Basketball Association. And I often wonder, and I ask the question a lot, and, I don't want to put you in hot water, but what is Basketball Queensland doing as far as assisting associations in building up their, courts?
Well,
anything?
Yeah, look, we're having those conversations at the moment. Basketball Queensland is going to advocate for us with government to try and, get the money to build the courts at Wakeley Indoor. We also had partnered with BQ on the Chandler project, but obviously after the 100-day review, it's now on the out.
Right.
But we are still going to work with Basketball Queensland to go back to government and say, hey, we get that it's no longer an Olympic facility, but can we make it a community facility?
Yeah, which we need. Yeah. I know Olympics right now is on the brain, but we need facilities.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to build facilities. I mean, let's face it, the Bullets should have done this, what Lindsay did 30 years ago, but again, you had Harvey involved and everyone that was making a cut out of them leasing and hiring the facilities. But to not have one of the flagships, to not have 10 courts being used 7 days a week with basketball people playing, training, and then turning into a showcase course for big games. You think about the income that they've missed out on that, and the potential then go, hey, this works, let's build another one. We haven't been able to demonstrate that really well. I mean, the Wizards have got a nice facility. I mean, you've got a nice but an old facility, and you definitely need more courts. So, I mean, it's just a constant battle.
It is, and I think our peak body should be leading the way in that. I mean, just like they do in coaches' education, referee education, all that shit will peter out if we don't have more gyms.
Well,
and the thing with I
to me,
think they understand.
They seem focused.
Well, what it is, so you have to hire high school venues.
It's hard to balance. I hire 15 venues in our area. So we've got the largest junior domestic comp in Queensland by far.
How many members do you have?
Look, if you include all of the membership. It's over 6,000 now, but we've
Wow.
got thousands of kids on waiting lists. And the challenge is with hiring all these venues is, the staffing, because they're all one court
The
venues.
logistics.
So, it's insane.
Safety, workplace, you got to create an environment
Yep.
that's safe for your volunteers.
Yeah, all that
It's
stuff. And then as soon
complex.
as you have an election, all those venues go down because, they're using the hall for the election. So, look, the challenges, are pretty immense, like with hiring all those venues. And it is our one biggest barrier at the moment is the lack of facilities. Like we can't grow our junior domestic comp anymore. It's at capacity. So the last couple of years we've focused on, we're proud that we're leaders in the inclusion space. Like we've got the 2 National League wheelchair teams this year.
I read
That's
that.
huge.
I read
Yeah.
that in the last 24 hours somewhere. I saw that, and that's just awesome.
Yeah. We've got a massive neurodiverse program that we've just rolled out, and we just could not believe the demand for that. Like we kind of just did an EOI and like hundreds of people responded. So we're rolling out that neurodiverse program. We're about to start a
So do you
walking
do that
basketball
during
program.
the day? Like,
Yeah, well, so we do, and the challenge with the neurodiverse program is obviously it's tough to do that in a full court venue where there's lots of noise because there's a lot of those participants have sensory issues.
Yep.
So we try to use our one court venues that they're good for that on Saturday mornings. But yeah, we've tried to kind of find ways where we can continue to deliver new things, but at times where maybe it's not at the same time as your domestic comp that you've already got because we just don't have the courts.
Let's look at the challenges. So when they approached you about, or did you approach them about the general manager's job? I imagine they approached you.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
What were the challenges then? I mean, we know that you got to deliver your domestic competitions. You have all your rep teams, and they all perform very well. Mm-hmm. The court hire situation, because Brian Curl's Academy, which by the way, shout out to our major sponsor, Brian Curl Basketball. You're a ripper. Pivot. What were the challenges when you came in? I guess you had to get personnel to look after, like you said about Phil Bender, your operations manager, and you got, what's her name? McDowell White.
Bianca.
Huh?
Bianca McDowell.
Bianca, she does a great job.
Yeah, she's
right
fantastic.
with the court hire and stuff. So, what were those challenges? Was it finding the personnel? Was it implementing new programs? What was it?
Yeah, look, when I came back into the role, the place wasn't in great shape. There'd been a lot of changeover on the board, and since Alan had left, they just never really got it right, which is to be expected when you've had someone that's
dominant.
God of everything like for such a long time. But yeah, they hadn't really got it right. So honestly, when I came back into the role, there was me, there was a referee person, and there was a part-time accounts person. That was it.
Wow.
So look, and I knew that going in, and so I knew that the first 12 months I wasn't going to have time to scratch my nose, which was true. But the good part about that was I got to handpick my staff,
right.
Which my board reminds me of often. It's like, if they fuck up, it's on you. You chose them. So
That's fair enough. But let me choose them.
But that's okay. I'd rather live or die by my own sword than by someone else providing me with the tools that I don't want.
Yeah, exactly. So I got to handpick my staff, and I only picked people that I knew had good character, and we got to kind of build it, the way that we wanted to. There was no procedures in place. There was no policies. There was no anything really. So we got to build it the way that we wanted to.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you the only female GM?
Of the affiliated
state?
associations. Like there's a couple of the smaller associations that have popped up that have, got some good females working there, but of the large affiliated associations.
Yeah, but those smaller ones, they wouldn't be GM roles, would they be people volunteer or part-time and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool achievement. You know, like we spend a lot of time in the world. I mean, I have 2 daughters and a son, but I better make sure I mention him. But it's just so good to see, like, women in sport, and basketball has been such a strong place for women in a sport. You know, we had this conversation with both Michelle and Sandy around, you know, like the culture of the Opals, for example, has been around way before the Boomers had it, you know. How does that sort of make you feel of your contribution to, you know, female sport?
Yeah, look, I'm really proud of that particularly. People often ask me, because I was the coaching director at Southern Districts and at Northside prior to the GM's role as well, and I was the only female coaching director. And, you know, wherever I've worked, there's always been really good female participation for players and for coaches. And people often say to me, oh, what is it that you do? And, you know, really it's nothing special, right? Like I think having females in positions of power and leadership is important. Like people think they're ticking a box by employing females, by putting them into administration roles or letting them run the canteen. But, you know, the simple thing of putting them in positions of power and leadership empowers other women to be like, oh, okay, you know, this is a place for me.
I think, you know, well, it just makes sense. You know, the women have such a great contribution to our society, full stop. But to have the influence in sport is also, I think, just
at the elite level, our women are dominant.
Yeah.
Compared to our men. You look at how many are playing professionally, both in WNBA. Our Opals are the benchmark, really. I don't know if our men can ever reach the level of accomplishment that they have.
Well, you know, we always like to say that we fight above our weight division, Australia, as a country, men and women's sport, but like the Opals, to compete with the population that we have and to be competing like with European countries and the USA, to even be on the floor and be competitive is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. You know,
let's go back, pivot.
Yeah.
Your rep teams do very well.
Yeah.
Consistently since I've been here. I came up in '93 from Melbourne, and the one thing that you first notice is the Hatfield-McCoy thing between the Brisbane Capitals. You know, you just don't see that in Melbourne. When you got Kilsyth's got 11,000 members. You go 5 kilometers further down the road, Knox has got 11,000. You go a little further over to Nunawading, 10,000 down to, I mean, it's like we don't have time to, you know, worry about. And I got to be honest, it was both parties. And I'm looking at when I can, like, man, we don't have this. We don't have Chelsea trying to, you know, screw Frankston. It doesn't, you know, and let's diminish them. You mentioned about writing policies and procedures. Now, of course, I had a little experience in that when we were in the residential out-of-home care stuff, because it has to reflect the legislation, which in our case would be both FIBA, but most primarily Basketball Queensland. So I assume, and I've seen the evolution of BQ, right? When I first came here, it was like, God, how many hands been in the till here? Cha-ching. You know, they got all their grant money. It all went to the salary of Pensko Smith. You know, it's like, thanks for the grant money. It's paying my salary. And that's gone up now. And they're well humanly resourced, BQ. But I mean, when you think about it, you got the whole finance part of it, you got the whole operational part of it, and that includes, you know, most important thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Bec, your domestic competitions, right? That's your blood flow, right?
Correct. Yep.
So now you got your rep teams. And why is it, I know that, like you said about PC, I went down during the holidays and he was running an under 18, I guess, elite, and they were elite. They look, and there was about 30 odd kids there, and I'm thinking, wow. That I don't know the Caps do that. I don't work there anymore. I don't ever remember it, right? I really don't. Where it was that detailed, the level of competition impressed me. That's the first thing you look for, and obviously they went through and culled it. How about the women's side? Who is your NBL 1 women's coach?
So Brad Can. So this is Brad Can's first year in. So. And, you know, Brad's got a great connection with the juniors. He's coached in the BQ state programs and done a lot of junior coaching. And that was an important piece for us to make sure that our NBL one coach was still developing our juniors because, as you said, we do, our NBL one teams are strong. Well, our women's team particularly is strong because we pick from our own program.
Yeah, I noticed that last year you won the youth league, girls. They were good. Who coached them?
That was Cassie Donnelly.
Is she coaching still?
She's not. She's just had a baby.
Oh, boy, she did a great job, though.
Yeah.
And size.
Yeah.
And how to play with size. And then you had 2 good point guard. I'm like, wow, this is healthy. Mm-hmm. The future is bright. Do you guys have any relationships with, because I had a discussion with Peter Crawford about, we put it in as a policy when I was in that role with the Caps, that the GPS, and I think they call it AIC or AIS.
AIC and the TAS and all the names of the schooling things.
But they have, because a lot of those kids are on scholarships. So we said, mate, we don't interfere.
Yep.
They have the first priority. So we got a kid like Lennon Ban, and now I'm helping year 10s at Brisbane Grammar School, and he's a scholarship kid. And we had this with Jordan Papakostas when he was at Terrace, and Andrea, our NBL one coach. I want to have him now. I want him to play now. I go, no, he's doing year 12, mate. Let him. And I knew that the academics to them, he's a genius.
He's going to be a doctor, right? He's never finished his medical degree.
But he, it wasn't a problem. The mom and dad's not, it's up to him if he can carry the load. And he's studying medicine now. But he got the best score.
Yeah, he's one of the brightest kids in his whole cohort of that year.
But I think it's kind of, particularly you're hiring from the schools, so I would guess Iona would be one of those schools that you guys, is it Iona?
Iona Villanova we work closely with. Churchy, so Churchy plays as a club in our competition. So all those big schools. Yeah.
So you want to make sure those relationships are solid, and we're not going to take from your program.
Funnily enough, I just had a discussion with some of the other GMs around this issue that school basketball is getting bigger and bigger, and they control it, right? Because they say to their kid, "No, you got to turn up for this." And they're paying for the kid's education, so that's what the kid's doing. So I've spoken to a couple of the other GMs about. I feel like Basketball Queensland does need to go to those stakeholders and try and foster the relationship, but coordinate the calendar for these kids.
Because included in that, you got the Met North, Met East, Met. That
all
stuff.
That stuff. You've got what's that CBSQ as well.
Correct.
I mean,
that's what happens.
You've got to ask about the Met East and Met West. It's a nothing tournament. It's a nothing. So for a kid, I mean, I get it. We want these kids to have.
There's a violation and an insult.
Yeah, and it's always been just a nothing, and heaps of kids don't play in it because they go, I'm playing rep for Southern Districts and I'm playing.
Yeah, my parents were going to pay for me to go away for state schools, nationals, that's for sure. They couldn't afford it.
For a tournament that really, it's just a fun tournament, not really.
But should it not be okay, this is the other side of it, right? Has representative basketball, your traditional representative basketball, has it gotten too big? We've got 7 divisions at state champs.
Well, I've actually hung on to this insult since we started today. When we were talking about QBI, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what they're called? QBI. Under 18 division.
You're talking about Basketball Queensland?
That's the one. Okay. That's the one. BQ. Under 18 division 5 or 6. Under 18, really, if
we had 7 divisions in the boys at the recent under 16 state champs.
I mean, come on.
And this is what I mean. So
if this is part of everyone gets a prize.
Correct. And if we work together, then those schools, representative teams, that's for the kids that.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So you need to work together though.
I remember Alex Scanlon came up, and now he's bounced around. I think he's down at Red City.
Ipswich.
No, Red City Roar, isn't he?
Who? Alex Scanlon, did you say? No, Alex Scanlon's the GM out at Ipswich, but he's just finished up. There's just got announced a couple of days ago he's going overseas. So.
Okay. He bounces around, but I remember when we went from under 20s to the youth, And I call him up. I said, mate, we need more than 20 names allowed on this thing. It's going to be a quilt, right? And, they have school. And our policy was school has a priority. We communicate with all their parents and coaches about it. And he goes, well, I think the kids and parents are just going to have to make a decision, either the school or BQ.
That's just so
So
wrong.
that told me, well, you're I don't know if you're a fool or a buffoon.
Okay, I believe you.
Seriously.
No, you don't want them to have to make that decision if we want to keep them playing. But it looks to me like you're saying there's 6 divisions of under 16 or under 18.
Seven divisions of under 16.
So we raised this when we had a conversation with Rick, and Rick, in his wisdom, Rick Lawyer, and said, oh, well, what about the country regional places that want to come to that tournament and they can't compete in Division 1? And I thought, I had never thought of that. But at the same token, are we catering for a very small number, right? And is there some other way that they can compete on their own and not against the big? Because all we're doing, because you can put 7 teams in because you're big enough.
Mm-hmm.
And but I feel that Division 7, did you say? Under 16, those kids are walking around telling people that they're rep players. Their parents are spending a fortune to do what you've got to coordinate the logistics of it. Is that taking away from other things at the association? If you only went to Division 4, do you know, like, is there some other
Model?
second
There
tier
definitely
or
is,
something
yeah.
for those regional locations? I mean, that's just money grabbing in my
Well,
opinion.
that's what it sounds like to me. But I don't want to put you on the spot, Bec.
But it's also like not just from the governing body, but it's also then the expectations of the parents and the player. You know what I mean? Well, I'm a rep player, like, but why aren't I? Well, where's my pathway to the NBA? It's like, hold on a minute, you can't chew gum and walk in a straight line.
Pivot. So now let's talk about the pointy end, the NBL 1, the QSL. You guys have got obviously both good men and women's teams at the NBL 1. QSL, you have QSL men and women and QSL 2.
Men and women.
And then you got Youth League.
Men and women, and Youth League 2, men and women. I've got 8. I've got the NBL 1, then I've got 8 QSL and Youth League teams and the same amount of teams in both genders.
So that's a slew.
Do you have a separate committee to run the rep?
Nope. We're not for profit. And I've got to hire 15 venues for training, so no, I can't afford that.
Yeah, I just wonder
Fair
that.
enough.
I've thought about this with the bigger associations. Like you've got to run your domestic competition. That's your bread and butter, right? So that's what your board should be helping. But the rep is different. It's out to the side, but it takes enormous amount of time.
Well, this is the other thing that we've been having conversations around, just with basketball participation in general. Like, so your representative, all the representative basketball and everything that Basketball Queensland delivers to, that's 10% of people that play basketball in Queensland. 90% of people that play basketball in Queensland just play in domestic comps.
Yeah.
For
that
fun.
we get no support for. And like I said, that's where our bread and butter comes from. But that's the majority of people that play basketball. And, so that's kind of, I feel like, where we need a bit of support from our governing body to, help with that, because then that will allow us to, do a better job with the 10%, that are elite.
That's a great point, Bec. So with all those teams, and now BQ does the scheduling, you just have to find the venue.
Yep. We have to provide the courts. Yep.
Yeah, provide the courts. Now, I don't want to throw a boot into anybody, but I'm going to. Auchenflower right now looks like the Gaza.
How
it
long
looks like the
has that been?
Gaza. It should be in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
It's a dump, and they can play. I don't have a problem with them playing QSL and youth leagues there, but NBL 1, your showcase piece. I'm sorry, and it's not gonna. When they say it was going to be ready by July, it won't.
No.
There's no way. And that's a problem. The other problem that I see, and I want your opinion on, we had 14 teams 2 years ago. We're down to 10?
12.
12.
Yep.
So we no longer have Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
They're out. We don't have Red City Roar.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Sunshine Coast teams
Rip
is
City. Rip
Rip
City's
City and North Gold Coast.
Yep.
So were there 16 teams before? I thought there was 14.
Wait, maybe you're right. Maybe there is only 10
I think there's
teams.
10.
Yeah.
And what it's always been
10 teams, 14 games. Yeah, you're right.
10 teams, 14 instead of you'd think there'd be 18 games. And this is what in my discussions with the people at the Caps is that if you don't have 9 home games, and not the Caps don't have that problem because there's no seating. They have to put the bleachers up.
We've got 7 home games. 7 home games this season.
That
7
to
home,
me,
7 away.
And we make compromises all the time for the North and that's cool. We want them in the league. They're part of the family, but they're going to have to make more trips. Unfortunately, we're bound by the geography. Cairns and Townsville, you're going to have to come down here twice.
Yeah.
And I think you got to.
Well, what about a full home and away season? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've had every year now, the end of year tournament, which conceptually is great, that we have a national tournament.
But it's not real.
But it never happens, does it?
Well, that's because the timing of it with the NBL owns it, but then all the NBL teams and tell their players you're not allowed to play. So there's
it diminishes that tournament.
Don't bother with the tournament.
I think the concept of the NBL, I'm a massive fan. Especially they've got multiple conferences and it has that national sort of feel. The timing of it is important, but I worry that the demands, like some of these players from the NBL teams, are just doing it for money, right? They're not. And if I'm a member of Southern Districts and I've been playing basketball for their 10 years and paying my fees, and there's a guy that comes in and takes 30 grand and couldn't give a shit about the club, is that right?
Nope.
Yeah. But it happens, right? So there's.
Last year we had a player. He's a fringe. He just signed with Matt Kenyon.
It's going to Adelaide.
His agent calls up. Look, and I always asked, what is it? Why the Caps? He wants 35 grand. He'll need a car, and he wants to live on the Gold Coast.
What is a holiday?
We want to make a better rebounder. I want to get better at pat. No, this is mate. There's 2 teams on.
To train twice a week. This is the other thing about state league. It's not a full-time job. You're training twice a week because that's all the court space we have.
Correct.
They're playing one game.
I think there's got to be some collusion here, or else we can't sustain it.
With teams out of it, and that's 2 home games, so that you lose to earn some money and get more sponsorship. But the players haven't backed off how much they want.
Nope.
And the agents don't get it. And that's where I'm saying, we got to, I was having this conversation to a board member, administrator at the Caps, and that this just can't keep going like this.
No.
I mean, it's impacted our domestic comp. We got to hire more courts, which then takes away from the school. It's a burden on the community. It's obviously a revenue drainer, right? Mm-hmm. You got to pay for the rent of that. But if you're only turning over, $3 million, and you're spending 10% of that on your NBL one, and it's never going to, because, I know, I love Peter Crawford. I love Van Dandy. They're competitive. They want to win, right? And, I look at our group, the Capitals, there's 5 kids that came through. You got Ant, you got Timmy Sung.
Yeah, this excuse of it being a pathway for your juniors is no longer a thing.
It's not, unless hey, why not? Let's make it that. Or, now it's a FIBA registered league.
People want to win. And so people will do, or associations or people that are running associations see that winning as And look, don't
You know, it doesn't do anything for you.
It doesn't
People
change.
don't remember 6 months later who
There you
won.
go.
And you don't get any more sponsorship because you won.
Correct.
Like, that's the problem, right? You've got all these teams in Southeast Queensland. So we all lose more than $200,000 per year to run the NBL 1 program.
Yeah.
So and everyone's like, go get sponsors. It's like, you've got 8 teams in Southeast Queensland competing for a second tier competition to get, it's just never going to happen.
Sponsorship, people don't understand, sponsorship at that level is rarely get a return on investment for the sponsor. It's them
Correct.
being,
It's a donation.
kind.
Yeah.
Well, you can bet now on NBL 1 games. Does Southern Districts Spartans get a portion of the revenue from
Absolutely not.
gambling?
And that's, you know, Basketball Queensland has gotten together with some of the other state bodies to try and renegotiate the contract that we have with the NBL because we've said it's just not working for us. You know, like there's more administration, there's more expectations on associations to deliver this great comp for the NBL, but they
don't contribute anything.
We get nothing.
No.
It's costing us more
It's
money.
a one-way street. And this is something that I thought this was something up with when the owner of Wollongong kind of led that charge against Larry Kesselman.
That's going to court right now.
Well, I think Larry's divested in his teams. He doesn't own half the league anymore.
No, he
have
does not.
a finger in the pie. However, the gambling revenue, you know, how is that? Is that all Larry's? Because it's now both NBL 1. I don't think you can bet on QSL. I mean, you have to be a dead set gambling, you know, pathetic if you're betting on QSL games, eh?
Well, do you know what's interesting though? There is, I don't know the exact figures, but there are a lot more bets placed on NBL 1 than the NBL. And obviously it's because there's a lot more games.
Yeah.
But there is a lot more revenue created from the gambling market on the NBL 1 than there is on the NBL. And we get zero out of that.
We're not talking about the most, let's just say, follow the rules industry is gambling. Like we're talking about, you know.
They just said that Pete Rose, the late, great Pete Rose, who was gambling on Major League Baseball games when he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
So he was banned for life. He died last year, and they just yesterday uplifted Shoeless Joe, Pete Rose. Shoeless Joe was throwing games back in the 30s or 20s, but now he can come back, and he's eligible for the Hall of Fame. There's going to be a fair bit of revenue because let's, off the top of my head, I'm going to put you on a spot, Bec. How many teams, West, East, Central, South, North, how many teams make up NBL 1?
Yeah, I don't know.
You got to think there's at least 50.
Yeah, because there's you'd have to say average 15 per state. Like we're obviously
Yeah.
but
I also think
20 in the South.
This is my untrusting brain thinking that, okay, you mentioned that more betting on the NBL 1. Well, that immediately made me think, well, that's because it's less monitored. It'd be harder for gambling or any government to come in and say, oh, that guy deliberately missed that free throw, or, you know, like, you just wouldn't be having the attention that, you know, that's why the Indians love doing cricket, because there's so many games of cricket going on, and they can, oh, this guy's got to do a no ball on the 5th over, and I'm going to put $50 at $20.
There's speculation that the big forward for Denver, who's brought now, his name is, help me here, 6'10".
Gordon?
No, the other forward.
Michael Porter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because his brother is banned for life.
Really?
He was with Toronto, and he was playing, you know, having a bet and throwing the game. And there was speculation now they want to look into Michael Porter Jr. because he's had a couple of shockers, like really bad
Well, yeah,
games.
it was like game 3, he didn't miss, and then like game 4, it was
Correct.
couldn't hit the side of the
It
mark.
raises suspicion. Are you on the punt?
But you also know that's possible. But as a player, you can have days where you can't hit backboard. You know, you
I never had a day like Beck. Did you ever have a day like that? She did.
Yeah, right.
Beck and I never did. You're throwing clump.
You just can't get
clang.
the American out of you, can you? You just talk shit.
Oh wow.
Do you know, I will credit Bruce for when I was a teenager and Bruce was my coach and he taught me a post move. I used that same post move for the rest of my career.
Was that with the Lady Blazers?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. There's a lot of talk about coaching and my philosophy and this is how I do things. There's no secrets in the game. People think I'm running triangle, I'm running flex, I'm running position. It's how you execute it. It's the same as how you stop teams executing something well. But if we both ran, let's just go, hey, we're going to go 5 out and play. Now you can scout the shit out of it as best you can, but if those players aren't executing, it's a team that executes it the best will win.
Well, let me pick your brain. That's a good point, Steve. Did you did you look at your talent and create, offense and spacing for the talent, or did you have an offense and you put that square peg into that round hole?
No, look, there's, concepts that, the latest trends or whatever you want to call it that, and you kind of have to go with those because that's what the players know, right? But I mean, there's all variations like, pace, space, create, whatever you want to call it, the phases of your shot clock, like, you kind of have to teach to that. But yeah, no, definitely. I always look at my team and be like, where are my strengths? What are my players' strengths? How can I set them up for success and get them to do what they do well?
So I'm coaching the year 10 A's, by the way.
Oh, gee, big time.
At Grammar. And we're going through trials. And so I got Kuda Tawagi. I call him Kuda Burger. Good coach. And he's an assistant with Craig Scroggy at QSL. We're only going to put 8 on our roster. We've identified 10 players. The rest are future engineers,
That'd be right.
lawyers, doctors. Just throw them off the balcony. Whichever land first will be out, and the ones that land on them, we'll put them in. But I was like, mate, we want to try to get these kids ready through this competition for next year to play for the first for Dan George, who's a great guy. He runs a great program. He'll be appreciating the love I'm spreading here on the podcast. But then, and I wanted, cutting and spacing. We want 5 cuts. It's an offense that I got from Billy Tomlinson and Gorgon when they were in China. I'm looking. They can't run this.
No, it's correct.
You might have any names.
I just dropping these those names up for me back. But I'm looking like they can't run this. It would take too long to teach. And I'm looking like, mate, they need what we do on Mondays at the curl. They need that really badly. Well, we have 90 minutes a week of practice. So, everything's to be taught out of the hole. But I'm interested in every coach, because Lindsay Gaze ran the shuffle.
Yeah.
His whole career.
But he also probably had the ability to recruit players that suited that, right? Whereas, in Queensland, we've all talked about that we don't have the money. So you kind of have to get the best players available at the cheapest price. And so then you put a team together and then you go, okay, what have we got?
Yeah. That's true. And Lindsay coached all day.
But again, it's still, you're right. Of course you can create and run better things for your athletes that are standing in front of you, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's how well they execute it. So you go back, so you got 90 minutes. You get the best out of those 90 minutes. You just see coaches do things where they're running suicides for 10 minutes of their 90 minutes. No, you need to be teaching on the run, getting as much done as you can in that short period of time. And because you're competing against has only got 90 minutes as well. So it's fair. Right?
Yeah. But I've just listened to a thing from Brendan Soar, who was assistant coach with Chuck Daly at the Pistons. And he was talking about, and he's obviously retired now, but he was saying, mate, if you come in now NBA and you're doing drills, you're wasting their time. That stuff they have to do on their own in the off season or find the timeouts. He goes, everything we teach is in the hole.
Yeah.
So I took a page out of that, and we put in out of bounds play, a side out of bounds play that, it's okay. They picked it up. The guys on the other court, I don't know what they were doing. They're the ones that are fighting to get into the C's and the D's. But it's, look, getting back, pivot. I want to get back
Is that a new noise?
That was me throwing the anchor out to pivot.
Right.
There's no handbook, right? I know that can I drop a name? Graham Burns, who was the CEO, and I was coming back from China, and I wanted to do a TAFE course on basketball, and Leonard King would do the player, and coach's education, and we'll get somebody to do the referee education, and every pathway that's available in basketball. And Graham wanted to do the finance, because he said a lot of associations don't. That's where they let themselves down. Because there is no book, is there? There's no manual.
And everyone thinks administrating sport's easy.
Oh,
And it's not. Everyone thinks they can do it better. Everyone thinks it's easy.
it's not.
It's not.
It's running a business. It doesn't. You got to run it like you would run, a gym, or you run a shoe shop. It's the same thing, man. You got.
Well, you're in the service industry, and my credit to you guys, because you're probably the largest association in all of Queensland. It doesn't get easier the bigger it is.
No.
You're talking about, you have to have relationships with all the schools or PCYCs, wherever you're getting your venues. The refereeing component is critical, isn't it?
Yep.
So you had a gentleman that used to be an NBL. He's no longer with you.
Jason?
Jason
No,
Hay.
he's no longer with us. Yeah.
He was one of mine that I used to yell a lot at.
Is there a referee you didn't yell at?
Well, Barry. No, I did yell at Barry.
So have you worked out where the word violations has got from in this? I'm his insultant.
Okay.
So what's the frequency now? You're relying on BQ for your referee education, but you still have to recruit refs. There's the guy. He's a Frenchman. His last name is Fernandez. He does all the NBL games. He's one of the 3 best refs in the NBL. And I met him down in, can I drop a city? In Macau, country really, territory.
Okay.
And how he got into refereeing, he was a player that got reported. And in France, if you get reported,
you have to ref.
You have to ref so many
Great
games
idea.
before you can come back.
Yeah.
Well, he found it. He loved it. He loved it as much as he did playing. And I think this is a thing. This is where I changed from being a lunatic yelling at refs. Finally figured out, well, this isn't getting us anywhere. All this is doing is pissing off a whole community of basketball lovers that they get into refereeing for the same reason that you got into playing and coaching. And once you realize that, you can kind of give them a little bit more respect.
I like that punishment of that. You got to ref.
That's a great idea. We've talked about that in our domestic comp. If they get tossed from a game, they've got to volunteer
come in,
to
you got to ref, or you're going to get on the score bench.
Correct.
Score bench is another one.
Well, I was just going to say, like the technical officials, statisticians, and score table. That is a legitimate pathway. Like like Rhonda Griffin, who's a life member of ours, but she's been to a Commonwealth Games, and that's
awesome.
a legitimate pathway. But again, we have to do all of that development ourselves for those technical officials as well.
That's a big job.
I mean,
I'm lucky to have good people, but
like Brian's Academy and the people. I know we've talked about this as well. You're a GM. There's people. There's full-time referees. There's people that are full-time junior coaches. There's so many pathways in basketball, and that's why we love the game. And we've talked about this before. You parents think their son or daughter's going to make the NBA, and the chances of that are fuck all. But there's so many things that the game can give people, like access to college junior college in America that never used to be available. It is now.
Yeah,
And
it's
there's
a life
just a massive amount of people doing that. They're never going to make even the NBL or NBL one.
Do you think though, like it's definitely
a life experience?
It is, but it's definitely a shift in society in general. Look, the NBA did a great job of obviously, promoting basketball and lifting the profile of it, but it just unfortunately coincided with a bit of a shift in society and expectations.
Parents.
Yeah, in general. Because this is, I don't know what you think, Bruce. I've always found it super interesting from a coaching perspective. Like, everybody wants to be a head coach, right? But head coaching is like, when you get to a certain level, elite level, everyone's got the same amount of knowledge, right? Because there's only a certain amount of knowledge out there. So it becomes more of a personality. Like, do you have the right personality to be a head coach? If you look at an NBA bench or an NBL bench, there's 18 assistant coaches and one head coach. So there's more opportunity if you want to become an assistant coach, but you can't sell that to people. Everyone still wants to be a head coach. And I don't get it.
That's a really good point.
Right.
I mean, I spent the last few years of my coaching. I've coached for 35 years, coaching with Bruce as his assistant. I loved it.
Assistant coaches usually have more knowledge than the head coach. It's just head coaches are better at managing people and leading.
Thank you for making that comment, Bec. But yeah, he and I get on and we challenge each other, and we got robust, thick skin. We don't take it personally. But I enjoyed it because at the time of my life, I was going through a separation and stuff myself, and I just didn't want that extra. I just enjoyed.
Pressure. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could coach a team if I wanted to, a head coach, but I actually enjoyed the assistant role because I could do more of the nerdy stuff,
I asked you to bring something every day.
Yeah.
Bring something new that we think about every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you did that, and you did that exceptionally well. Can we pivot?
Yeah, you've been doing a great job of
So
pivoting.
what other initiatives can we see that you're going to bring forward at the Spartans, at Southern Districts, the dark side?
So look, facilities is, as we've talked a lot about today, that is my main focus. Like, that's my number one priority is trying to get this side at Wakeley, trying to sort of rally government and get some, because I need money from everywhere. I need money from state government, federal government, and
Brisbane
council.
City, yeah.
Like, the thing is, we're pretty confident. We're about to get, people to go out and have a look at and test the site next week. But we're pretty confident with the footings and everything that are there that we can get an indoor 6-court facility built for around $15 million, which is unheard of, to be able to do it that cheap. Because it's already got toilets, change rooms, canteen, don't need amenities. As long as the footings are good, which we're hoping that they are, it's just putting a shed over and fitting it out.
Wakeley, that's a good location.
Yeah, it's a great location. It's a great site. It's a council site. So, we're really hoping that, we can rally government to be like, you are not going to get this kind of a facility done for this price,
Yes. So who's the new minister? Hinchcliffe is going to work, what was his name, Tony Hinchcliffe?
He
resigned, and then he's now working for BQ.
Sterling.
Yes, Sterling.
He was going to come onto the board, wasn't he, in some sort of advisory role or something?
Is he out of politics now?
I believe he is.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
But I think that's a great one but who is in his seat now?
Good.
Putting me on the spot. I should know the guy's name. I met him the other day.
Because we wanted to put a little pressure on behalf of those Spartans.
Steve Minigan, we have a really good relationship with Steve Minigan. He's state level. So he's the patron that Southern Districts has been for a long time.
Yeah.
So I need the state government, particularly on the back of this 100-day review, and it's like, okay, well, we still need venues, even though,
I still can't believe that they're going to Boondall as there was so much excitement around. I mean, I love all sport, right? Well, there's a couple I won't name that I don't like, but sport.
Don't be shy.
Well, I'm not a massive fan of soccer or.
Okay.
Anyway, but we won't.
The way
go
you
there.
shoot, you should have been a fan of soccer. Palmer, out. Go on.
But I guess you got me off track now. What was I talking about then?
Yourself.
Yeah, I was not talking, Bruce.
You're talking about the other sports you don't like. Soccer, rock climbing.
Yeah, but all sport needs venues in this country. It doesn't matter. I'm sure soccer, I'm sure rugby, I'm sure AFL are all saying we don't have enough venues. We don't have enough because they're all growing. And it's
And they'll all
Yeah, but we
be
live in Queensland, so indoor sports are the way to go, right? Otherwise, everyone's going to
get
get skin cancer.
Get skin cancer. Walk around with a red nose. I'm not ready to tie this into a bow. I need more from Bec.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you from a federal level, who I will be reaching out to is the treasurer of our country, Jim Chalmers. So I don't know if you know this, but Jim Chalmers is a Spartans boy.
Is he?
He
I
is.
thought he was swinging off the Logan Thunder.
Well, so, the KO game, that was game of the week, Logan versus Southern Districts, and Mr. Chalmers is there wearing a Logan hoodie.
That ass.
Look, to be fair, it was the night before the election, so I get it, but, I was like, you are a Spartans kid. Like, come on now. He coached my brother.
Really?
At Spartans, as a junior. So he's a Spartans kid. So, I will be reaching out to Jim to
I
have
saw
coffee.
something, I'm not, come on, Jim, but Logan's getting some facility.
Well, they're getting an Olympic facility, right? That's one of the ones that stayed.
Okay.
Because and Sunny Coast and Gold Coast is getting some Logan and refurbishing Boondall. I would have thought the way to refurbish Boondall was to get a bulldozer. But anyway, apparently
Or
it can be
build a
refurbished.
monorail from my house to Boondall.
Yeah,
I think the
I
Pirates
played
too.
there and it was amazing in my to be involved at Boondall because there was nothing else. But now to go out there is just a drag. If you live on the north side, okay, great, but it just takes that extra,
Well, getting out of there is the real drag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
That's
want
when
to
you
leave.
need
You
to,
want
you've
to
got to
blow
wait an
out.
extra hour to get out of the car.
The
park
last
once
few
you've,
years, most of their home games were blowouts, so I could get my car started and get out of there before the start of the fourth quarter. But I only went to one game, and I tell you what, though, the Spartans gym, it throbs. I missed the game because 8 p.m. start for me was just too late.
You come on this weekend?
Well, who are you playing?
Northside Wizards. DMAC. DMAC coaches the men.
Yeah, and DMAC's on our list to reach out to get on our podcast, but we go with women in sport first. And you being a general manager, the only one that we're aware of in Queensland, I know Denise Roberts used to be the title of GM. Is that her name?
Kathy Roberts.
That's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Denise was her
Yeah.
Someone
lady.
else.
Yeah.
Just another one of your names. Anyway, keep going.
Well, Kathy's the one that got me over to Northside, actually. So I was the coaching director at
2
Spartans.
years or 3 years?
I did 2 years there. So I was the coaching director, but they had been out of the league, the state league, for 7 years while they were building their facility.
Right.
So they got me there because they, obviously wanted to go back into the NBL one, but. The girls program at Wizards was very much, the girls play for fun. So,
That's changed.
yeah, I would have liked to have done my third year because, you have a 3-year plan always. Like we made finals our first year back in and made finals
Who
the
was the
second
head
year
coach?
of the women.
Yeah, you?
Me, yeah.
Oh, there you go. You see?
Yeah.
Do your research, Stevie.
I've got it here. We've just swung back to it.
Okay, that's right. We pivoted.
I've got it covered and she's covering it brilliantly.
Yeah. But yeah, so, the NBL 1 program, like we made finals first year back in after 7 years, so that was good. And like I said, we were getting closer and closer. I would have liked to have done the third year, but I went home. But just, it was great to go there and build a program. Like they didn't have a women's program, so I was really inclusive with, I did with the QSL and, the under 18s and under 16 girls. And
Those are big jobs.
yeah, but it was, the best part for me I'm really glad I had that 2 years away from Southern Districts, because Spartans was all I'd ever known, but to be able to go and see
something else.
how someone, someone does it differently.
That's a good association.
It is a good association, but it gave me a way to be able to go, okay, what's worked at Spartans, but what's worked somewhere else, and now I can build my own identity, and I can, kind of put my own
You're definitely a coach of renown, and your success speaks that. But when you were at the Wizards, was that when Lyndon was there?
I felt bad. So Kathy got me there, and then Lyndon took over just before I decided to come back and take this role at Spartan. So I'll never forget. I made the decision. It was a hard decision, and I knew I had to tell Lyndon face to face. So I drove over in the rain on a Friday night, because I was living out at Redlands still, and working over there. But I had to let him know once I'd made the decision myself.
Did you, Lyndon responds very well when you whistle without making any noise when you walk into a room. Have you ever noticed that about Lyndon? He's got a habit. He walks in, he's whistling, but he makes no noise. And that's,
He's a close talker. You've never noticed that about him?
He's a close talker.
He's a Seinfeld close talker, that's for sure.
And, I'm not one to make fun
so
of other people's heads.
Lyndon and I grew up together.
Did you? Yeah.
We've known each other since we were 2. So I'm a Bundy boy and he's a Bundy boy.
Yeah.
So he's been on the show. He's a wonderful, wonderful.
He's a great guest.
Agent now.
No, he's an agent. He's a secret agent. Yeah, he's got
He's
Coleman.
agent for the girl that was playing at the Wizards for a couple of years. And
The MVP, Bowman.
Bowman, yeah.
Aaron Bowman.
Yeah. And then the...
actually, he did reach out to me. I do, but I'd already basically signed my team by the time we
The African American girl athlete played at Logan last year. She's playing somewhere else now. They might be both playing on the sunny coast.
Oh, is that Lyndon look up?
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
And that's
athlete.
Okay.
She would have been somebody.
Leah Scott. No,
Leah Scott.
Yeah.
God, you're cycloptic. I think of it. Bec says it.
Leah was in my 2019 team that won the championship at Spartans.
Is she a tin tank? A yank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me.
I haven't heard that.
I'll do a pivot.
Okay, sure.
And what interests me, what does it feel like to be a junior? Your dad coach you, and now you're GM of the association. You must be pretty chuffed with yourself.
Yeah, it's a full circle moment. It's a proud moment.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, for us kids who grew up in the regional areas, and you so much time in your association when you're a junior, and all those memories of tournaments and stuff are just etched in your brain. To be able to still go back to the club that you grew up in must be really nice.
And I'm determined, like you said, it's a business now, and we have to treat it like that, and to be able to continue to deliver the things we want to deliver to everyone. It has to be commercialised a little bit, but
100%.
I'm determined to, I know the history of basketball in Queensland. Like, a lot of people don't know that. They see me as an administrator. They just assume that I'm good at administration because I'm a female. They don't understand that I know the landscape in Queensland better than anyone. Like, I've played, volunteered, coached, done all the things, which has helped me in this role too. Like, when you have to be a decision maker, you have to make decisions that are best for the majority. And when you've lived and walked most of those roles, it makes that easier. But I know the people, I know the history, I know how it got built, and I'm not going to allow that to kind of be lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The history of associations is so critical and often overlooked, as a new board comes on. I mean, I know they had trouble at the Northern Gold Coast, and the history of Southern Districts is incredible. I think you guys, of most of the clubs that I know around town, do a really good job of, recognising your old
tradition.
Player. Yeah, I think you do a good job of that.
Yeah, I had a moment when I was coaching. I think it was about 2019, and so Wally, who I reckon Wally has got to be the longest standing volunteer in Queensland. So he does our NBL1 game nights, but over the years, has worked in the canteen. And, growing up, there was 4 of us kids growing up playing basketball. So, one of us would always get forgotten and left at the stadium. We'll be hanging around waiting for someone to pick us up. And, the joke was always that my brothers would have starved to death if Wally hadn't have fed them hot chips out of the canteen. Anyway, I was standing on court one training, coaching a few years back, and I happened to look upstairs and my son was up there and Wally was feeding him hot chips out of the canteen. And I actually nearly cried. I'm not generally an emotional person, but I was like, wow, that's special.
Fantastic.
It's all those memories that are an important part of being, my mum ran the canteen at Bundy, and the hot chips were just amazing, because you had access to it. It's amazing us as junior kids, what you remember. And that's what I guess the point I was making about why, I can see in your passion for Southern Districts, to have that tenure with the club and associations, very cool. And to have the experience that you have, coach, administration.
I think it's great, because you are a part of their tradition, their history. Mm-hmm. And that makes this story, the Rebecca Stephens story, so interesting.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, Bec.
Are we tying a bow in this?
Well, we probably should.
Rebecca Stephens, thank you so much for being on Violations and Insults. We will wait till you leave before we insult you. Give me a handful of knuckles back. Thank you so much.
It's been great.
Yeah.